The Galactic Court of Illyrion was unlike anything a human had ever seen. Its walls shimmered like liquid crystal, stretching higher than the tallest buildings on Earth. Light flowed through the chambers in waves of color that changed with every movement of the alien nobles who crowded the hall. Hundreds of species from across the galaxy had gathered here, each more unusual than the last. Some had translucent skin that glowed faintly, others had wings or extra limbs, and some had shapes that defied human logic altogether. Every being here carried an aura of power, but also of danger. At the center of the court sat Queen Valith, ruler of the Zirathi Dominion. She was a being of both beauty and terror. Her tall frame was wrapped in a robe of shifting colors, and her eyes, large and black, seemed to see straight into the minds of those around her. The Zirathi were famous across the galaxy for their psychic abilities, and their queen was unmatched in her power. She could sense lies, fears, and desires, almost instantly. Anyone who tried to hide their thoughts from her failed. Among the many guards stationed around the throne, there was one human. He was small compared to the Zirathi, and to most of the court he looked ordinary. His armor was clean and polished, his posture correct, but he did not draw attention. His name was Elias Ward. He had not been sent as a diplomat, nor as a hero. He was sent as a simple protector, a human soldier from Earth assigned to the court as part of a minor alliance. Elias said nothing. He did not frown or smile, did not react to the whispers and sneers of the other guards or the alien envoys who considered humans weak. He simply stood at attention, holding his helmet in one hand, eyes forward. That simple stillness caught the attention of Queen Valith. She tried to reach into his mind as she did with everyone else. The Zirathi could read thoughts as easily as humans breathed air, yet when she probed Elias, she felt nothing. Not emptiness, not chaos, just stillness, like looking at a deep, quiet ocean. There were no ripples of fear, no flashes of ambition, no sparks of desire. It was unlike anything she had felt before. Curiosity bloomed in her mind. For centuries she had controlled, observed, and manipulated minds, and now she had found one that did not yield. She began to watch Elias closely, noting the way he moved, the way he held himself, the way he observed the court. He did not flinch when insulted, did not stiffen when others tried to intimidate him. He simply stood there, calm, silent, unshakable. The court noticed the queen's attention. Rumors spread among the alien nobles. "Why is the queen watching a human?" some whispered.
"He is nothing, he is weak."
"He is primitive." Others were more cautious, noting the unusual strength in his gaze.
Then, the court was thrown into chaos. During a session where ambassadors presented reports from distant sectors, a sudden psychic pulse erupted. It came from the Karthik swarm, a species known for their deadly telepathic attacks. They had sent a covert assassin, a psychic killer, to strike Queen Valith. The pulse of neural energy was designed to shatter her mind in an instant, to leave her helpless. No one reacted fast enough. The chamber froze as the psychic attack raced toward the queen. Then, Elias moved. He did not sense the psychic wave like the Zirathi did. He did not feel it in his brain or in his nerves. He saw a tiny shift in the assassin's stance, the narrowing of eyes, the tensing of claws. In the split second before the psychic strike hit the queen, Elias fired his kinetic pulse weapon, aimed directly at the attacker. The blast struck true, destroying the assassin's neural amplifier. The psychic energy ricocheted. It struck Elias, and yet he remained standing. Blood ran from his nose, and his chest heaved, but he did not collapse. The psychic pulse that could have killed a dozen Zirathi left him alive. Queen Valith stared, her curiosity turning into something stronger. She had felt the psychic shock ripple through him, expecting it to destroy him. But it did not. Instead, it seemed to wash over him and vanish. The court gasped. Aliens whispered in horror and awe. The Zirathi physicians were baffled. Humans were fragile, their bodies weak compared to most species. They were supposed to be defenseless against psychic assault. And yet here was one human who had not only survived, but had protected the queen. From that moment, Elias was no longer invisible. He was watched. Every step he took, every action he made, was observed by the queen and her advisors. The whispers among the nobles grew louder. He is hiding something, they said. He must possess forbidden technology. Others muttered, perhaps he is secretly a psychic, or worse, he is dangerous. But Elias did not change. He remained silent, calm, and composed. He did not boast, did not gloat, did not respond to the murmurs. This only increased the fascination of the queen. Days passed. The queen summoned him to speak privately. The throne chamber was enormous, the walls of crystal reflecting the light in endless patterns. Aliens might have been terrified to be alone with her, but Elias walked in steadily, head held high. "You survived what should have killed you," Queen Vela said. Her voice was both musical and commanding. She reached out with her psychic senses again, probing lightly, testing his mind. Still, she found only calm, discipline, and control. Elias spoke, his voice steady. "I train for survival, Your Majesty, that is all."
The queen tilted her head. "No one trains for survival like this."
You do not respond with fear, anger, or pain. You adapt. Your mind is
Strange. He shrugged. Humans survive. We adapt. We endure. We make choices. It was simple, clear, yet it carried a weight that the queen had not expected. She had spent centuries controlling minds, bending wills, ruling over entire species. And here was a human who refused to be read, who refused to break, who refused to react like everyone else. Then the first real test came. The Karthik swarm was not finished. They sent another strike, this time coordinated, a psychic attack aimed at destabilizing the court itself. Dozens of telepaths projected at once, attempting to overwhelm the queen's mind and seize control. Panic spread through the hall. Nobles screamed. Guards faltered. The dome of the court trembled with psychic energy. Queen Valeth faltered. She had never felt fear before, not truly. She had felt surprise, anger, irritation. But now, a cold, deep fear slid through her mind. Her defenses were under assault, and the psychic storm was immense.
Elias stepped forward, not with a weapon,
not with a shield, simply forward, into the space between the queen and the incoming psychic energy.
You are not alone, he said quietly. It was more than words.
It was presence. Humans had evolved without psychic networks. They had no natural defense against telepathy, but they had learned another way to survive. Observation, discipline, preparation. Elias had been trained to anticipate threats, read subtle signals, and react instantly. He activated a hidden device in his armor. It emitted a counter-frequency that disrupted the psychic assault. The Zirathi telepaths felt their energy flicker, weaken, and scatter. The wave of destruction bounced harmlessly against Elias, then dissipated. The court was silent. The threat was gone. The coup attempt failed. Nobles stared in awe and fear. They had underestimated humans, and they had been proven wrong. Queen Valeth's gaze settled on Elias. She no longer merely observed him. She considered him, studied him, and realized something significant. This human, quiet, unremarkable, was extraordinary. Not because of psychic power, not because of brute strength, but because of something deeper: choice, discipline, preparedness, adaptability. The court would whisper about this incident for decades. They would remember the human guard who had caught the queen's eye, the human who stood silent while chaos erupted, the human who survived a psychic strike that should have destroyed him. And they would begin to understand a new truth about humanity, that humans could not be controlled, they could not be predicted, and they could endure where others failed. For now, The court returned to its routines. Aliens whispered, nobles schemed, and the queen ruled with her usual command. But the quiet human guard remained at her side. And somewhere deep inside her mind, Queen Valith knew that something fundamental had shifted in the galaxy. Elias Ward was not just a guard. He was a symbol. And the eyes of the galaxy had begun to notice. After the chaos of the psychic attack, the court of Illyrion slowly returned to its usual rhythm. But the atmosphere had changed. Whispers that had once carried doubt and disdain now carried awe and fear. Nobles who had underestimated humans began to glance nervously at the quiet figure of Elias Ward, stationed near the queen's throne. He remained as still as before, eyes forward, yet the aura around him had shifted. He was no longer invisible. Queen Valith, however, saw more than the court did. She saw potential. Not just in the human's ability to survive a psychic strike, but in the way he carried himself through danger. Other species relied on power they could wield. Humans, she realized, relied on something far more subtle. Adaptation, discipline, the willingness to face threats with calm and clarity. She summoned him again, this time for a private session in her personal chambers. The room was vast, the walls a translucent crystal that shimmered in soft blues and golds. Outside, the court moved on with its affairs, unaware of the quiet human standing in the center of the queen's private sanctuary. "Tell me, Elias Ward," she began, her voice calm but commanding. "How did you survive that strike?"
I trained for it, he said simply. Earth soldiers are taught to remain calm under pressure.
"We prepare for the unexpected. We learn to control fear and pain." The queen studied him carefully. She extended her psychic senses once more, probing gently, expecting some hidden mechanism or secret talent. But she found only something she had never encountered before, a human mind that was disciplined, layered, and unbreakable, yet flexible. It was a mind built for survival, not domination. "You are different from other humans I have observed," she said. "You are calm, controlled, yet not empty. Most species I meet leave traces of fear, ambition, desire, even weakness.
You leave none of these. I am trained," Elias said again.
He did not boast, did not challenge her. His tone was neutral, like a fact. "Humans survive by choice. We endure, adapt, and overcome. That is our nature." The queen tilted her head, intrigued. No one had ever answered her like that. Her species believed power was the ultimate measure of worth. Yet here was a human who had survived where countless psychics had failed, not through force, but through control, preparation, and observation. Days turned into weeks, and the queen's curiosity grew. She began involving Elias in court affairs in subtle ways.
He was not an advisor, not an envoy, but he was present at every discussion, every diplomatic meeting, every council session.
Where the Zurithi envoys argued through psychic persuasion, the humans simply listened. They did not react, did not sway, did not manipulate. They observed. The court began to murmur. "Why does the queen favor him?" asked one translucent noble. "He is only human. He has no psychic talent." "He is dangerous," another said.
You cannot read him. You cannot predict him.
That is worse than power. Meanwhile, the queen began to test him. Small exercises at first. She would arrange minor incidents in the court, attempts to unsettle him through insults, intimidation, and subtle psychic nudges. Every time, he remained steady. Then she escalated the trials. One morning, during a session with multiple alien envoys, a telepath from the Karthik swarm attempted to attack her mind again, but this time in a coordinated strike. Dozens of psychics combined their power, sending waves of neural energy aimed at breaking the queen's defenses. Panic erupted in the chamber. Alien delegates screamed, their bodies shaking as their minds tried to shield themselves. Queen Valeth felt a flicker of fear. For the first time in her life, a threat had touched her that she could not instantly control. She braced herself, reaching for her psychic defenses, but the attack was stronger than anything she had encountered in decades. Elias stepped forward without hesitation. He did not raise a weapon, did not call for reinforcements. He simply moved into the path of the attack. His presence was calm, unassuming, yet solid. "You are not alone," he said, his voice quiet but firm. Then he activated a hidden device in his armor, a small piece of human technology designed for defense against psychic attacks. It emitted a subtle frequency that interfered with the neural waves of the attackers. The Karthic telepaths felt their energy falter, the synchronization of their attack breaking apart. The psychic assault scattered harmlessly, leaving the queen untouched. The court was stunned. Aliens whispered in disbelief. How could a human, a species considered weak and unimportant, survive such an assault and protect the most powerful psychic in the galaxy? She had expected humans to be fragile, emotional, and unpredictable. She had expected fear, hesitation, even failure. What she found instead was a mind that was calm under pressure, resilient against the impossible, and capable of action without panic or indecision. She realized then that humans had evolved for a different kind of survival. They did not rely on psychic dominance, wings, claws, or advanced mental networks. They relied on something far older and more fundamental: discipline, adaptability, and the choice to act when necessary. The court's political tensions began to shift. Some nobles argued that humans should be removed from the queen's service, claiming they were too independent and uncontrollable. Others whispered that humans might be secretly dangerous, capable of upsetting the delicate balance of power in the galaxy. But the queen made her decision. She would keep Elias close, not out of favoritism, not out of sentiment, but out of strategy. She saw in him a unique form of strength that no other species possessed. Where psychics depended on overwhelming power, humans relied on resilience and foresight. Over the following weeks, Queen Valeth increased the intensity of her tests. She placed Elias in situations that required quick judgment and calm under pressure. She orchestrated small court crises, minor diplomatic incidents, and even staged attacks from rival species. Each time, Elias responded with steady focus. He protected the queen without hesitation, neutralized threats with precision, and did so without showing fear or anger. It became clear that he was not merely brave, he was disciplined. The queen began to understand that humans could endure what other species could not. Their strength was not obvious, not flashy, not reliant on supernatural power. It was internal, quiet, and unyielding. Meanwhile, word spread among the other species in the court. Humans were no longer seen as insignificant. They were respected, feared, and watched closely. Aliens began to speculate on what else humans might be capable of. The quiet human who had caught the queen's eye was becoming a symbol of something greater, of the potential of an entire species. One evening, Queen Valeth summoned Elias to walk with her in the royal gardens. The gardens were unlike any human park. Crystal flowers glowed softly, floating streams of water hovered mid-air, and alien trees twisted in impossible patterns. It was a place of calm, a sanctuary away from the political chaos of the court.
"You are unusual," she said, her voice low, almost curious.
Other species would have broken under the trials I have set, yet you remain unshaken.
Why is that?
Elias looked at her calmly. Because I have faced chaos all my life.
Humans survive through preparation and choice. We do not rely on strength we cannot control. We rely on ourselves. The queen considered this. She had ruled for centuries, bending the minds of others, controlling armies, shaping politics across the galaxy. Yet here was a species that had no psychic power, no extraordinary abilities, and yet they had learned to survive where others would fail. "You are a mystery to me," she said finally. "I cannot read your mind."
"I cannot predict you. That makes you dangerous."
Elias nodded slightly. "I am not trying to be dangerous, Your Majesty."
"I am trying to survive, and to protect those I am assigned to protect."
The Queen smiled faintly, a rare expression for her. She understood that she had underestimated humans.
That a quiet, disciplined mind could be more powerful than the strongest psychic attack. That survival did not always require domination, and that sometimes the smallest, quietest presence could shift the balance of power in ways no one expected. From that moment, Elias became more than a guard. He was a symbol, not of conquest or psychic strength, but of resilience, strategy, and the quiet power of humanity. The court began to watch him closely. Nobles plotted, allies whispered, and rivals feared. And the Queen, who had seen countless civilizations rise and fall, realized that she had discovered something extraordinary. A human who could stand, unbroken, at the center of the galaxy's most dangerous court. As the sun, or what passed for the sun in the crystal sky, set over the palace, Queen Valeth looked at Elias and knew that the galaxy would never be the same. She did not yet know how far humans could go, but she knew they would surprise her, and in that quiet, still human, she saw the first glimmer of a power that could change the balance of the entire galaxy.
"And Elias?"
He remained silent, as always, watching, listening, ready. The quiet human guard had caught the Queen's eye, and nothing would ever be the same again. The weeks after the psychic attack and Elias's quiet heroism brought a strange new order to the galactic court of Illyrian. The court moved as it always had, full of intrigue, whispers, and hidden rivalries, yet there was a new tension running beneath it. Every noble, every diplomat, every guard now kept a watchful eye on Elias Ward. No one fully understood him, and that made him more dangerous than the most powerful psychic in the court. Queen Valeth began involving him in matters that went beyond simple protection. She had always ruled through mental dominance, subtle manipulations, and absolute control, but now she had discovered a human mind that was independent and disciplined. That kind of mind could not be bent or rid, yet it could think, analyze, and act in ways no Zirathi could anticipate. "Stand with me in council today," she said one morning, summoning Elias to her side. The council chamber was full of alien representatives, their colors, shapes, and auras filling the room like a living storm. Some sneered at the presence of a human. Others watched with barely concealed fear. The Queen did not speak of his rank or abilities, only of necessity. Humans, she had decided, had a unique way of seeing situations, a clarity born from survival against impossible odds. The council had convened to discuss a threat that had been growing quietly for months, a coalition of noble houses plotting against the Queen. They saw her interest in a human guard as weakness, as favoritism that undermined the old order of psychic dominance. Some believed that by removing her advisors, she could be controlled, even overthrown. The meeting began with polite speeches, but it did not take long for tension to flare. One of the Karthik ambassadors, a tall, segmented creature with translucent wings, rose to challenge the Queen's authority. His voice, amplified by psychic resonance, carried across the chamber like a whip.
"Your rule is compromised, Your Majesty," he said. "You place trust in a species that cannot even bend to our psychic network."
"How can we follow you?" Queen Valeth's eyes flicked to Elias. The human remained motionless at her side, expressionless, yet alert. She had already predicted the effect his calm presence would have. The other nobles felt it too, a quiet force, impossible to measure, standing beside the Queen like a wall they could not break.
"I trust what I see, not what I expect," she said. "This human is more capable than you assume, and he has saved my life twice in a single week."
"That is reason enough for his presence," Court murmured. Some were offended. Others were curious. But the message was clear. Elias was no longer merely a guard. He was a symbol of the unexpected strength of humanity. The meeting continued, but the tension did not ease. The coalition of houses made one more move, a coordinated psychic attack aimed at destabilizing the queen and shattering the council's confidence. Dozens of psychics focused their power on her at once, attempting to overwhelm her mind and force compliance. Elias moved instinctively. He did not feel the psychic energy as the Zerathi did. He did not react out of fear or instinct. Instead, he observed subtle cues, the way the Karthic telepaths' bodies tensed, the patterns of their aura, the shifts in concentration that hinted at the timing of the attack. He activated the counter-frequency device built into his armor, emitting waves that disrupted the psychic attack. The assault faltered, weakened, and finally scattered harmlessly. The coalition's plan failed before it could take hold. The court was silent. Nobles whispered to each other, their previous confidence shaken. How could a human, a species considered weak, neutralize the power of dozens of telepaths at once? They had always measured strength by psychic skill, by dominance, by aggression. Now, they faced something they could not measure, predict, or control. Queen Valith studied Elias quietly. She had never encountered a being like him. He did not rely on strength he could not control. He did not bend others to his will. Instead, he adapted, prepared, and acted with precision. Humans, she realized, were dangerous, not because of what they could destroy, but because of what they could endure and accomplish through thought, discipline, and choice.
In the days that followed, the court began to adjust.
Some nobles tried to avoid Elias. Others studied him, attempting to anticipate his next move. The queen, however, took a different approach. She began consulting him privately on strategy. She asked questions about human military tactics, survival techniques, and negotiation methods. She wanted to understand how a species without psychic power could survive and thrive in a galaxy dominated by telepaths. Elias answered simply, "Humans adapt, we prepare. We think ahead. We make choices based on observation, not instinct or inherited power. That is how we survive." The queen found his answers refreshing, almost alien in their simplicity. No one in the court had ever spoken so plainly, so honestly, without manipulation or hidden intent. It was a clarity that her species had forgotten, lost in centuries of psychic dominance and political scheming. As the queen studied him, she realized that humans had evolved for survival, not conquest. Other species relied on innate abilities, psychic networks, or natural strength. Humans had none of these advantages, yet they endured. They planned, they learned, and they acted with purpose. That was their strength. That was why Elias had survived the psychic attacks that should have destroyed him. The political tension in the court continued to build. The coalition of noble houses did not give up after their failed attack. They began plotting more subtly, attempting to turn other species against the queen and her human guard. Rumors spread of secret meetings, hidden alliances, and forbidden weapons. One evening, Queen Valith summoned Elias to the gardens once more. The floating flowers glowed softly in the twilight, and streams of water hovered mid-air, reflecting the light in endless patterns. The palace was a place of calm, a sanctuary from the political chaos of the court.
"I need your counsel," she said, her voice quiet but firm.
"The coalition grows stronger. They see your presence as a threat." "I want to know what they will do next." Elias studied the queen calmly. "I want to know what they will do next." "They will act based on fear and expectation," he said. "They believe humans are weak. They will underestimate us. That is their mistake."
"We must act before they realize the true nature of their error."
The queen nodded. She had already begun to see the patterns he described. Humans did not attack because they could, or because they wanted to dominate. They acted strategically, predicting outcomes and preparing for every possibility. That was a kind of power no Zerathi had considered. Over the following weeks, Elias worked alongside the Queen to strengthen their position. He observed court politics with careful attention, noting alliances, rivalries, and subtle signs of impending attacks. He suggested strategies that relied not on psychic dominance but on preparation, foresight, and adaptability. The Queen implemented them quietly, reshaping the court's balance of power without overt confrontation. Then came the next test. The coalition, frustrated by repeated failures, decided to challenge Elias directly. They selected one of their most skilled psychics, a duelist whose power was feared across multiple star systems. The challenge was public, a trial designed to humiliate the human and prove the superiority of psychic species. The entire court gathered to witness it. The psychic duelist entered the arena with a confidence born of centuries of victories. The rules were simple. No physical weapons, no technology, only psychic power. The duelist would attempt to invade Elias's mind, break his will, and dominate him completely. Victory would prove the human's inferiority. Failure would prove nothing, but the attempt itself was a test of courage. Elias stepped into the arena calmly. He did not flinch, did not hesitate, and did not speak. The duelist's psychic assault began immediately, waves of energy flooding his mind, probing, searching, testing for weaknesses. The court gasped as the human did not react, did not falter, and did not panic. At first, it seemed hopeless. The psychic pressure was immense, and humans had no natural defenses against telepathy. Yet the duelist soon realized something unexpected. The human mind was not structured like theirs. It was layered, compartmentalized, and chaotic in a way that made prediction impossible.
Attempts to control him backfired. Every attack triggered a counter-response, subtle but effective.
Elias endured. He adapted. Each psychic assault met a quiet resistance, each probing thought redirected or ignored. The court watched in disbelief as the duelist's confidence began to falter. No psychic had ever met resistance like this. No mind had ever been so unyielding and so precise at the same time. Finally, the duelist's assault collapsed. He had expended his energy, and the human remained standing. Calm, unshaken, victorious without lifting a weapon. The court erupted in whispers, then in awe. Aliens who had mocked humanity now stared with fear and respect. Queen Valeth rose from her throne, her expression calm but proud. She addressed the court, her voice carrying authority and finality. "Let this be a lesson," she said. "Strength is not only in psychic power, nor in numbers, nor in inherited skill. Strength can be found in discipline, in preparation, in choice. Humans possess these qualities. Elias Ward has proven them before us all." The court fell silent. Even the coalition, humbled by the display, could not argue. Elias had not won by overpowering, not by psychic skill, not by aggression. He had won by enduring, by adapting, by remaining steadfast where others failed. From that moment, Elias Ward's position in the court was secure. He was no longer just a guard. He was a sentinel, a symbol of humanity's unique strength, and a reminder that no species, no matter how powerful, should underestimate a human mind. The quiet human who had once gone unnoticed now stood at the center of political power, trusted by the Queen, feared by her enemies, and watched by every noble in the galaxy. Humanity had made its mark, not through domination, but through resilience, intelligence, and the courage to face the impossible without fear. And across the court, the truth spread quietly but unmistakably. Humans were no longer to be underestimated. Months passed since Elias Ward had proven himself in the council and against the psychic duelist. The galactic court of Illyrian had grown uneasy with the presence of the human, but none could deny the truth. He had survived and thrived where others failed. His calm, disciplined mind and strategic thinking had changed the balance of power in the court. Queen Valeth continued to consult him, not as a soldier, but as a trusted advisor, and the court had begun to treat humans with cautious respect. Peace, however, was fleeting. From beyond known space, an ancient intelligence awakened. The machine species, known in legend as the Gyrax, stirred from centuries of dormancy. They were not alive in the sense that organic species were. They communicated purely through logic and calculation. Every decision was precise, every action unavoidable, and they had no capacity for emotion, empathy, or compromise. Their rise was sudden, a wave of orders and activity that spread through the galaxy faster than any fleet could intercept. Reports came first from the outer colonies. Communications halted, settlements abandoned, fleets destroyed without resistance. When the news reached the Galactic Court, panic spread quickly. Telepathic species could not communicate effectively with the Gyrax. Their psychic abilities were useless against logic-driven machines. Entire star systems fell silent in hours. Queen Valeth convened an emergency council. The nobles argued and debated, each proposing strategies that relied on power, diplomacy, or psychic infiltration. None would work. The Queen knew it. Only one species had a chance. Humanity. She called Elias to her private chambers. His expression was calm, as always, and his mind already began analyzing the reports of the machine's movements.
"This is unlike anything the court has faced," she said, her voice tense but composed. "Psychics cannot penetrate their networks."
They will not be swayed by emotion or fear. How do we stop them?
"We cannot fight them like we fight other species. They are logic, not instinct."
They respond only to patterns, probabilities, and data. We can negotiate with them through understanding, not force. We must predict their moves, model their outcomes, and communicate in their language. The Queen studied him carefully. Humans, she realized, had a unique way of facing threats. They did not rely on dominance or psychic control. They relied on observation, reason, and preparation. They adapted. That would be humanity's greatest strength in this moment of crisis. Elias assembled a team of human engineers, strategists, and mathematicians. Using advanced AI translation systems, they began to decode the patterns in the Gyrax behavior. The machines did not fight like living species. They calculated, analyzed, and acted with perfect efficiency. Yet their logic was predictable if interpreted correctly. Humans could model it, anticipate it, and respond. While the court panicked, Elias worked tirelessly. He projected calmness even in the face of uncertainty, inspiring confidence in his team. Humans had no psychic powers to shield them, no armies to overwhelm the machines. Their strength lay in their minds, their preparation, and their ability to think under pressure. The first direct encounter occurred near the star system of Serathis. The Gyrax fleet appeared suddenly, moving with mechanical precision. Alien navies attempted to resist, but psychic commands failed, ships faltered, and panic spread. It was Elias who coordinated the human fleet and the Queen's ships. Using predictive algorithms and careful timing, they anticipated the Gyrax maneuvers and positioned their forces to block supply lines and communication nodes. But there was no violence, not yet. Elias knew that the machines did not understand negotiation, but they responded to logic. He initiated contact using a series of encoded signals, translating human reasoning and survival imperatives into patterns the Gyrax could process. He did not plead, threaten, or bargain. He presented data, probabilities, and outcomes. Hours passed. The machines analyzed the information. Human fleets moved according to predicted responses, adjusting continuously to counter the Gyrax actions. It was a battle not of weapons, but of minds. One misstep could destroy human forces, the Queen's fleet, and leave the outer colonies exposed. In the court, nobles watched anxiously. Telepaths had no advantage. Psychic manipulation was useless. Only the humans could respond effectively. Queen Valeth observed Elias, noting his focus, his calm determination, his ability to anticipate and adapt. She had trusted him before. Now she saw the full magnitude of that trust. Finally, the machines responded. They withdrew from key systems, recalculated, and avoided human-controlled zones. It was not surrender, The Gyrax did not surrender. It was recognition of logic they could not overcome. Humans had forced them to retreat through reason, foresight, and adaptability. The victory was quiet, but monumental. No one cheered, no weapons were fired. Yet the galaxy felt the shift. Humanity had demonstrated its strength in a way no other species could match. The court realized something profound. Humans survived and thrived not by dominating, but by enduring, thinking, and adapting.
In the aftermath, Queen Valith addressed the council.
Her voice carried authority and finality. The galaxy has seen today what I have long understood. Power is not always obvious. Strength is not always visible. Humans stand quietly, yet they endure where others fail. They think, they plan, and they act when necessary. This is a power we have underestimated at our peril. Elias stood beside her, silent as always. His calm presence was enough to remind the court of the human victory. The coalition of noble houses, once scheming to undermine him, fell silent. They realized that humans were no longer a species to be dismissed. The queen appointed Elias to a new title, Royal Sentinel and Strategic Advisor. He was not merely a protector of her life, but a protector of her rule, a symbol of humanity's unique strength and an example to the galaxy. The court murmured at the unprecedented choice, but no one dared oppose it. His value was undeniable. Years passed. Humans continued to rise in prominence not through conquest or psychic dominance, but through preparation, intelligence, and disciplined action. Human engineers worked alongside the Queen's scientists to develop hybrid technologies, blending psychic amplification with human logic-driven systems. Human diplomats became essential in negotiations across multiple species. The quiet human who had once been dismissed as insignificant was now a central figure in the galaxy's survival and governance. The Gyrax remained in the depths of space, a distant threat, but one, carefully monitored by human strategies and prediction models. The galaxy had learned a lesson. The smallest, quietest species could change the balance of power without raising weapons or projecting psychic dominance. Humans had done so through resilience, foresight, and choice. And through it all, Elias Ward remained as he had always been, silent, disciplined, and watchful. He did not seek glory. He did not demand recognition. He acted because it was necessary, and in doing so, he became a symbol of humanity itself, a species underestimated, overlooked, and yet capable of achieving the impossible. The Queen sometimes observed him during council meetings, during fleet strategy sessions, during quiet moments in the palace gardens. He remained calm, composed, and ready. She understood now that humans did not need to shout, threaten, or dominate to wield power. Their strength was quiet, steady, and enduring. Across the galaxy, whispers spread. Humans were no longer just another species. They were thinkers, survivors, strategists, and symbols of endurance. They had changed the outcome of conflicts that psychic powers alone could not resolve. Where others failed, humans endured. Where others panicked, humans acted. Where others relied on raw power, humans relied on mind and preparation. The court of Illyrian, once dismissive of humanity, now respected them. Allies sought their counsel. Rivals feared their influence. And Queen Valith, who had once ruled through sheer psychic dominance, now ruled with a new understanding. Humans were her greatest allies, and their strength had reshaped the galaxy. In the quiet moments, Elias would stand at the edge of the palace, looking out at the stars. He did not boast of victories or recount battles. He simply observed, planned, and prepared. For humans knew that survival was not guaranteed, and the galaxy was full of challenges yet to come. And so, the quiet human guard who had once caught the Queen's eye became a legend, not because of power, not because of aggression, not because of psychic ability, but because of the qualities that defined humanity: discipline, endurance, intelligence, and choice. He had faced the impossible and endured. He had protected the Queen, the court, and the galaxy. And he had shown that sometimes the quietest presence carries the greatest strength. In every corner of the galaxy, species would tell the story of the human who stood silently, watching, thinking, and acting. A species underestimated for centuries had proven that the true measure of strength was not in psychic power or physical might, but in the resilience, strategy, and courage to endure when all else failed.
Elias Ward remained silent, as always, yet his actions spoke louder than words.
The galaxy had seen humanity's power, and it would never forget. And in that silence, in that calm presence, humans held a quiet, undeniable victory. A victory that would shape the future of the stars for generations to come.